Aw man, I really want to watch Zarek's TASM video, but I don't have the time and patience to click both videos. Well, don't worry my little follower, because now you can watch both of my TASM videos, and they're all gonna be one video, clicking one at a time. When you just click one, and boom, you get the whole theory on what can happen in TASM 3, only on YouTube. Here's the full video of TASM 3, hope you guys enjoy. Hello everyone, how are you doing? How's it going? My name is Eric Swords and I've returned for another video. Now just recently, Sony has been talking about a potential sequel for the Amazing Spider-Man series. We're talking about TASM 3. There was this trend a while back during No Way Home with hashtag TASM 3, and now I think it might happen. Now before I start talking about what this video is supposed to be about, I just gotta say I have very mixed emotions about this. On one hand, we get to see Andrew Garfield back as Spider-Man and complete his story, and he can finally have his own trilogy like Tom and Tobey. And on the other hand, it could just be a fan service. If TASM 3 does end up happening, then who knows what could happen next. Maybe we get Spider-Man 4, but I don't think we should get Spider-Man 4. Don't get me wrong, I love Tobey Maguire, love Sam Raimi, but I don't want to risk ruining the franchise with the fourth movie. Especially since the fourth movie is known to ruin trilogies, which didn't need the fourth movie in the first place, and it also ruins the franchise that trilogy has built. And you wanna know why? Because they were never meant to be made in the first place. I could go on and on about this, but it doesn't matter, because it doesn't matter whether I believe there should be a TASM 3 or not, because it's most likely gonna happen, and instead of arguing whether it should or not exist, let's focus on it being the best possible version of itself. Okay, this video. So this video is going to be about what I think should be in TASM 3 and it's mostly what I want to see in TASM 3. Both concepts and scenes we could see and just stuff like that. It's mostly speculation and a little bit of a fanfic. But hey, well, why not? Why not? You've seen plenty of those already. Now it's my turn. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Eric Swords, and this is What If TASM 3. First, we start with the timeline. And I'm gonna say it. This movie shouldn't take place after No Way Home. Now, wait. Hear me out. Don't click off. Hear me out. While I know we will want to see what happens to Andrew after No Way Home, but let's be real. This isn't the last time we're going to see him, and we will most likely see him either in Across the Spider-Verse or another future film. With that in mind, TASM 3 shouldn't take place after No Way Home, because I feel like that would just be too nostalgia based and wouldn't give his Peter Parker any justice. Especially since we got a cliffhanger at the end of TASM 2, and I'm not saying that we should go ahead and complete the story beat by beat where it left off, because now I feel like we could change up the original plan for TASM 3 in a way that feels justifiable, while at the same time being connected to No Way Home. Next, we start with the story, and for this, we don't even have to overthink it because we have this scene from No Way Home.
I lost Gwen. She was my MJ. I couldn't save her. I'm never gonna be able to forgive myself for that. To keep going, try to keep being the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, because I know that's what she would have wanted, but at some point I stopped pulling my punches. I got rageful. I got bitter.
At the end of TASM 2, we see Peter lose Gwen, and of course, for a brief moment, that destroyed him, to the point where he gave up being Spider-Man, and it stays like this till the end of the movie when Peter eventually fights the Rhino. Don't forget, Peter is still hurting from the loss of Gwen, but he puts that aside to save the people of New York. And I strongly believe that this is what TASM 3 should be about. Peter disregards his emotions, trying to pretend that everything is okay, trying so hard to make sure everything is okay, until he eventually breaks. I feel like for this one, the tone should go more into the first TASM vibes, where it is mostly dark setting and more grounded than the last movie. The opening scene of the movie takes place at night, where people are trying to rob a bank. While they are outside, Spider-Man comes down from the roof. I don't know why I said Peter. Spider-Man comes down from the roof and takes them out. After Spider-Man easily takes them out, he notices a couple on the other side of the street. laughing together and holding hands. Peter looks at them for a while. He imagines Gwen, till eventually he snaps out of it and swings away. Then he gets back home and sneaks through his window. We get a scene where Peter takes off his mask. He opens the door to Aunt May's room. She is still asleep. He closes the door and Aunt May opens her eyes. Peter heads to his garage where he grabs a screwdriver and he begins fixing his web shooters. He then slowly looks up from his work to see a picture of Gwen hanging on the wall. Peter quickly looks away and continues to work on the web shooters. It's morning. We get a scene with Peter and Aunt May talking to each other. May knows that Peter is sneaking out but says nothing. Peter leaves to work and closes the door behind him. May grabs the dishes from breakfast and puts them in the sink, where she starts to cough. She gets a little concerned but ignores it. We get a scene of Peter walking down to the train station while wearing headphones. While walking, we get to see Spider-Man posters on the walls and people talking about him in the news, and we get to see kids with Spider-Man backpacks. Peter sees and then gives a light smile. He then goes to the Daily Bugle where he meets J. Jonah Jameson for the first time. Now the reason I'm choosing Peter to meet JJ for the first time here is that in the last movie, we get a scene where Peter is emailing JJ, but we never see him. So for this, I'll just say that Peter never meets him in person and only sends photos to him online. And it makes it cool because we are introduced to the world's version of JJ with Peter. We go with the story and get a little montage of Peter going around New York and taking pictures until we get this scene. On a Jumbotron, we see that Harry Osborn is going to trial. Now, the last time we saw this version of Harry was obviously back in TASM 2. Peter beat him, he got locked up, and then we see the guy in the hat, Gustav Fierce, join forces with him. Now, we know that the fan base isn't nice to this version of Harry, and there are many reasons for that. He is a whiny, spoiled brat, he breaks down easily, and is not a well-rounded character. Even his so-called friendship with Peter feels forced, as if they just added him last second to the movie. But you know what? Say what you will, but I strongly believe that this movie could redeem this version of Harry, because unlike James Franco, this one killed Gwen. And ladies and gentlemen, this is where the spark was lit. In case you forgot, both this version of Harry and Norman share this incurable disease that supposedly turns them into the Green Goblin, and the only cure is Peter's radioactive blood. Also, it disappears randomly. How convenient. So for this movie, Harry is going to trial, and Gustav Fierce teams up with him, trying to get him out, as well as release the Goblin. Later that day, Peter goes back to the Daily Bugle, where he gets a call asking for him to be a witness for Harry's trial. Almost immediately, Peter starts getting flashbacks from that night. But due to JJ thinking it will make the front page, he reluctantly agrees. Later that night, Aunt May asks if he is okay, but Peter ignores her and goes up to his room and sees a picture of Gwen on his bed. It's the next morning. Everyone in New York is talking about Harry's trial. Peter sits down on the witness stand, and this is where we see him. Harry. Suddenly, Peter is filled with anger and resentment. For the entire trial, Harry barely spoke. He looked tired. His eyes were bloodshot red. He wore a nice blue suit, but his hair was a complete mess. He then goes up to the stand and gets asked questions about what happened back in TASM 2. During questioning, Harry then starts to lose it once he sees Peter. Almost immediately, he starts yelling and screaming. He yells, "Now!" Suddenly, the glider bursts through the window and of the courtroom. Harry rips out of the chains and gets on the glider. He then starts firing at the people. Everyone's trying to escape, running and screaming. Peter gets out of the nearby bathroom, now in his suit. They have a battle in the courtroom, eventually outside. They argue with one another, Peter losing his cool, and Harry trying to cut him. Eventually, Harry escapes. We later get a scene with Harry and Gustav Fierce, and we learn the reason that Harry is joining forces with him is so that way he can get Peter's blood, potentially curing him. We learn that Gustav Fierce has a history with Peter's dad, and was one of the people who helped him create the spiders, along with Norman Osborn. But when Richard Parker tries to escape, he hired people to assassinate him and his wife, connecting the opening scenes from TASM 1 and 2. I'm not really sure what his main goal should be. It should either be him trying to kill Peter for his blood, to possibly recreate the spiders, or him trying to frame and kill Spider-Man, or for him to rule the criminal underworld along with Harry and his team of supervillains. I was originally gonna have the Chameleon for this movie, but later scrapped the idea, because I don't want to end up making the same mistakes TASM 2 made, so I'm just gonna leave the two villains, no more. I said no more. Later we get more montages of Peter doing Spider-Man stuff, while at the same time trying to find leads on Harry's location. Since Peter now has a full-time job at the Daily Bugle, he has no time to be Spider-Man in the day as he used to. Now we see him doing more crime fighting in the night. No matter how hard he tries, he can't get Harry out of his head. He's all over the news, and now Oscorp is starting to lose stock due to the controversy. Peter is now starting to talk less. He gets colder towards the criminals of New York. Later in the movie, Amy starts getting sick and she's unable to go to work. So now Peter has to work double time, unable to be Spider-Man as much in the day. Now, for this movie I said I wouldn't add any more villains, but for the sake of this movie and for No Way Home, I feel like it would be a crime not to. We then see Harry and Gustav Fierce go to Ravencroft, the same jail Harry was in back in TASM 2, only this time, they came here to pay someone a visit. Dr. Connors. They break him out, but Dr. Connors refuses to join them, but due to his DNA, he starts to lose control. He turns into a lizard and goes to attack the city. Peter looks at his phone. Amy is calling. He looks up at a jumbotron and sees the lizard attacking people in town square. Hesitantly, Peter quickly suits up. He ends up at town square, where he sees the lizard throwing cars at jumbotrons as well as people. Peter tries to calm him down, but the lizard starts attacking him. Then, after an epic battle with the lizard, he hides in the sewer drain. Now, people have to worry about both Harry and the lizard. People are afraid. The city needs Spider-Man more than ever. Peter got another call. He answers. May's in the hospital. He sees her in the bed. She can barely open her eyes. A wave of guilt washed over Peter, knowing that he could have saved her. Now Peter has to take care of the rent and May's hospital bills all by himself. He can barely get any sleep now, and is constantly paranoid on Harry's new sighting. Since Spider-Man barely appears in the day, the people of New York start to wonder if their friendly neighborhood Spider-Man is still friendly. Gustav Fierce goes public and gains the trust of the people, saying that he will get rid of Harry, Lizard, and potentially Spider-Man with the tech of Oscorp. Peter is exhausted. He tries to keep everything together until this. He sees a group of thugs vandalizing Gwen's grave. No more lines. No more holding back. Spider-Man loses it. Left to right, he attacks the thugs with no intentions of holding back, even when they tell him to stop. What's the point of fighting for you? Once he is done, he looks behind him. He sees Gwen. She's scared. He blinks twice and sees a group of people watching him, with fear and panic in their eyes. They were recording. Andrews Peter swings out of the way, lands on a nearby skyscraper, and takes off his mask. What have I done? Now the people of New York fear Spider-Man. There is no one else to trust. Peter can't even look at his suit. He can't even look at himself. Peter goes outside in the cold, dark night. There's no one else there. Only him. He hears someone calling him. He looks up, and across the street, he sees a sewer grate. He goes over and sees it's Dr. Connors. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Eric Swords, and this is my part 2 of What Could Happen in TASM 3, where I talk about what should or could happen in the potential third movie for Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man. Go right ahead and watch that first. Don't worry, I'll wait. You back? Great! Now, on with the video. Peter walks up to the sewer grate across the street. Inside was Dr. Connors, still in his lizard form. But this time, Dr. Connors seemed different. He wasn't aggressive like back in town square. He gained back his consciousness. Peter held up his guard, but eventually chose to help him. If he agrees to help him with Harry. Dr. Connors reluctantly agrees. Spider-Man swings around the city while Dr. Connors tries to blend into the shadows in order to not get caught. While stopping for Dr. Connors to catch up, he looks down and sees a kid looking at him. It was one of the kids from earlier that were wearing the Spider-Man backpacks. Only this time, he doesn't have it. Spider-Man looks at him for a moment, then goes back to swinging. Him and Dr. Connors both sneak into Oscorp to get the equipment they need to turn him back to normal, as well as finding a way to take down Harry and Gustav Fiers. While they are getting what they need, they start talking to one another. Dr. Connors apologizes for what happened to Gwen, but Peter doesn't answer him. The Lizard grabs a nearby lab coat and puts it on. I've always liked this look for Dr. Connors, and that way he looks less revealing, because to be honest, when Dr. Connors is not wearing the coat, he looks a little too... As they are about to leave, an alarm goes off, and they are surrounded by thousands of Osborn security guards. They team up and take down all the guards in the building. Spider-Man swings and shoots webs at the guards, while the Lizard pushes them out of the way, trying his best not to lose control. Eventually, after that fight scene, they both escape Oscorp and head to an abandoned building where both Peter and Dr. Connors work on the cure. It was quiet. Neither of them talked to one another, just working on the cure. Until finally, they finished. The cure is done. After all this time, Dr. Connors could fix his DNA and get rid of the Lizard once and for all. Peter asks him where he will go after he takes it. Dr. Connors says that he isn't sure, but it's better than being a monster. He could have a fresh start. Start somewhere new. Spider-Man! Both Peter and Dr. Connors look outside. They see Harry from a Jumbotron. He was recording live. Oh, and by the way, this is my impression for Harry, so don't judge. I know you're singing this! You know, like many others, I used to believe you're the hero this city deserved. That no matter what, you will always do what's right. But we both know that isn't true. He then plays a video of Spider-Man beating up the thugs. Looks like even someone like you can fall. The Lizard looks at Peter. He's still looking at the screen. Because in the end of the day, behind that mask, you are still just a man. A man that makes choices that affect millions of lives. A man fighting messes that he's created, and we are left to clean it up. Because Spider-Man, you don't make things better. No matter how many people you save, hundreds more will get hurt. Because you can't save everyone, even the ones who need you the most. Not me, not her. Now it's them. Behind Harry are 50 hostages, all tied up on top of the Empire State Building. Still think you're the hero? Then prove it. He breaks the camera. All the Jumbotrons that he was connected to all went black. Oh boy, that was rough. The world felt like it stopped moving. For once, the city of New York was silent. Andrew's Peter grabs his mask, as well as the gadgets they stole from Oscorp. Peter begins to climb the window. Just as he is halfway, he looks down at the city streets. All those people depending on him. He needs to prove that he can still protect the city. He needs to prove that he can still help. He then falls out of the window, getting closer and closer to the ground. Till, like a bullet, he bursts through the sky. He begins to swing to the Empire State Building. Back at the abandoned building, Dr. Connors looks out the window, seeing Peter swinging. He looks at the cure that he is holding. He begins to hesitate. Cut to black. For a good 10 seconds, we see Peter swinging and running through the city, till he is face to face with the Empire State Building. He looks up where he sees a silhouette of Harry's glider. On top of the building, the hostages are muffling and screaming. Harry gets a call. He puts on his earpiece. It's Gustav Fiers. They have a back and forth on what to do with the hostages if Spider-Man does not make it on time. Gustav Fiers tells him that in order to gain the city's fear, Harry will need to kill the hostages if Spider-Man doesn't make it. Harry starts to have doubts, but Gustav Fierce tells him that if he wants to get payback for Oscorp, as well as getting Peter's blood, he has to do this. He then hangs up. Just before he turns around, Peter socks him at the back. Harry spins around until he gains back control of the glider, but then Peter's delivers a punch to the face. Harry begins chasing Peter to the top of the building, till Peter is hanging on the antenna of the Empire State Building. Harry throws a pumpkin bomb. Peter dodges it and swings it back at him. Harry falls off and crashes on top of the building. As he is struggling to crawl back up, he checks the suit's power. It's now working 78%. Peter lands behind him. Harry quickly gets back up and starts swinging. They have a hand-to-hand combat. Harry swings out a blade and starts to slash Peter. He misses twice, so he hits him the third time. The blade cuts through his suit and he starts to bleed from his forearm. As soon as he saw the drops, Harry's eyes became bloodshot red. They continue to fight till the glider comes back. Peter misses and it's now going to Harry. He barely dodges it. The blade hits his ribs and he is now bleeding out. His blood is now a dark green. Peter goes to free the hostages. He then goes to one of the entrances and breaks the door open. All of the people rush down the stairs. Peter looks back. Harry is gone. He starts to walk around. Then out of nowhere, a pumpkin bomb lands by his feet. I know, Mom! Boom! It explodes, and the floor under Peter starts to break. He falls into the building and lands on one of the floors. He looks up and sees Harry looking down at him. Peter runs. Harry chases him, and he throws chairs, computers, and desks, but the glider just gets closer and closer. Harry threw another pumpkin bomb. Peter fell through another floor. He gets worried that if they keep going down, they'll eventually meet with hostages. Peter runs and crashes through a window. We then get a scene of Peter swinging through the city trying to lose Harry. Every time he shoots a web, another pumpkin bomb explodes. Flew around the entire city, with cars exploding and buildings being damaged. Eventually, they end up at a construction site, where the final battle begins. All the people working there ran away. They kept fighting. Peter's getting weaker and weaker, but just before all hope is lost, Dr. Frickin' Connors is in the ring. Him and Peter team up against Harry. Each time Harry cuts a limb, the lizard grows it back. Every bomb thrown gets thrown back. Harry gets weaker and weaker. Eventually, he flies away, and Peter tries to go after him. Don't. He's not worth it. Not worth it. Not worth it. He could be going after another group of people. He could be setting off more bombs. He's weak. I doubt he even has the strength to even walk. Not risking it. Very well. So what are you going to do? Go after him? Destroy more streets and buildings? They're never going to forgive me, are they? Forgiveness takes time. You have to gain back their trust, not by what you say, but by what you do. And in order to do that, you got to do the toughest thing a stubborn man can do. Forgive yourself. I guess we both have a hard time doing that, wouldn't you say? It wasn't your fault, Peter. You did the best anyone could ever do. And I'm sure she wouldn't want you to live this way. You know, it's been hard ever since. I tried to keep going, making sure that everything was okay, but I don't know how to move on without her. You don't. You take her with you. All the laughs, the memories, the good and the bad. You use them as a reminder that in the darkest moments, there is still hope. Because if you lose that, then Gwen truly will have died for nothing, Peter. Peter gives a light smile. Now, this is where we connect to No Way Home, and I know a lot of people are going to get pissed off by this, but this is what we're going to do, guys, so be prepared. Harry shoots at Peter's leg. He falls to the ground. He then aims at a concrete mixer. It explodes, and all of the wet cement gets on Dr. Connors. He struggles to get it off. While he's distracted, Harry stabs him. In just a few moments, the light in Dr. Connors' eyes begins to fade. We get a scene of the cure. It's shattered all over the floor. Dr. Connors is dead. Yeah, I know a lot of people were pissed off by that. So one of the inconsistencies of No Way Home was probably the fact that all the villains there either know who Peter was or died from Spider-Man. Dr. Connors knew Peter, but unlike him and Flynn Marco, both didn't die in their movies. Is it a good idea? Does it tie things together? You let me know. Dr. Connors is dead. Peter yells. He struggles to get back up. He shoots webs at Harry's eyes. He then grabs a steel pole and stabs it through the glider. The glider starts going out of control, unstably flying around. Peter tries his best to hold on to it, till they both crash on top of the unfinished building in the construction site. Harry is impaled by a copper rod. His suit is only working 32%. Peter looks at him. Peter, is that you? He doesn't respond. Sirens start to ring in the background. My suit. It's falling apart. No, we gotta get out of here. I can fix my suit back at Oscorp. He doesn't respond. Without my suit, I would die in an hour. Peter, please. I'm sorry. About her. I was angry. Desperate. Peter said he could help me. He begins to walk away. Peter, please. You're the only family I have left. He stops. Peter remembers Aunt May back at the hospital. He looks down and sees Dr. Connors' body slowly turning human. He remembers Gwen. Her face. Her smile. When all hope seemed lost, she brought him back to reality. Peter rips the sleeve from his arm that was bleeding. He throws it back at Harry, then walks away. Peter. Where are you going? Peter. Peter. Peter! 3 weeks have passed, and Harry was on the news. He survived, but is now paralyzed. He is locked up back in Ravencroft, this time with double security. We get a scene with Gustav Fiers. He walks to his desk with a picture of Harry. He marks a X with a red pen. Cut to a scene in the hospital. Peter is sitting down, and right next to him is Aunt May. She was sleeping. The doctor said she was going to be okay, but she won't be able to leave for a couple of weeks. Peter held her hand. He looked at the TV where they were talking about him. He turned it off. He sat there for a few moments till he said goodbye to Aunt May. We cut to a scene at the cemetery. Peter buried Dr. Connors at an unmarked grave. He laid down white roses. Thank you, Doc, for saving me again. He stood there for a moment till he eventually left the cemetery. He kept thinking about the spider his father made, that his blood could potentially save or damage lives. Peter started thinking about what Harry said. Fierce. Peter left the cemetery. He ran through New York City. Peter looked up and noticed one of the signs. It was from the Daily Bugle. It read, Spider-Man, Friend or Foe, by J. Jonah Jameson. Yeah, JJ is really trying to milk this the best way he can, and with everyone no longer trusting Spider-Man, no one's calling him out. Eventually, Peter made it to the old abandoned train station from TASM 2. He walked in and inserted one of the coins. Peter walked in. He found the spider formula that he has been looking at for years. With nothing left to find, he looks at old photos of him and his parents. But something was off. He looked at the shot closely and saw behind their old house window was a silhouette of a man. Fierce? Can it? No, it's not. Same hat, same shape. What does he have to do with this? He stood there for a few seconds, so he eventually left with the photo with him. As he was walking home, Peter remembered what Dr. Connors told him back at the construction site about forgiveness. On a Jumbotron, there were more people talking about him, and even considering planning to track him down, while a small few said that he deserved a second chance. News reporters even talked to kids who wanted to see Spider-Man again. He made it back home, where he went to his garage. His suit had a stitch mark where he ripped the sleeve. Next to it was the suit back in TASM 1. It's all dirty and ripped up. Peter remembered what Dr. Connors said. In order to gain forgiveness, you must first forgive yourself. He walked over to his desk, where he saw a picture of Gwen. He stood there for a few minutes, till he smiled and laid the photo face down. It was a bright sunny afternoon. A bank exploded. It was the same robbers from the beginning of the movie. As they were about to get into the car, Spider-Man jumped on its roof. With ease, all of the robbers were webbed up. Spider-Man turned around and sees the people of New York looking at him. In seconds, there were helicopters and news reporters. But he didn't care, because standing in the crowd, he saw Gwen. She smiled, and Peter smiled back. Post-credit scene. Spider-Man is fighting Scorpion and the Vulture. Just as he's about to punch his version of Doc Ock, he gets teleported. He ends up punching a brick wall. He grunts and checks his hand. He looks around and sees something was off. This wasn't his New York. He saw JJ, but he looked different. He saw one of the Jumbotrons on screen and it read, Spider-Man is Peter Parker and Mysterio forever. Cut to black. Hey everyone, that was the video. I know this took a long time to make, but now it's finally here. You let me know what would you like to see in TASM 3 if they ever make a TASM 3, as well as let me know if you like this random theory/fanfiction I made. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Eric Swords. Till next time.